Welcome to today's digital on-demand webisode titled 6 Ways to Foster the Next Generation Workforce. The Greater Houston Partnership works to make Houston one of the best places to live, work, and build a business. With more than 1,000 member companies representing approximately 1/5 of the region's workforce, the partnership champions Houston's growth by bringing together businesses and civic-minded leaders who are dedicated to the region's long-term success. Learn more at houston.org. The Small Business Matters program is designed for high-growth, smart small businesses to make valuable business connections. Members include C-suite, sales, marketing, and business development professionals. Included with this program is digital on-demand programming, workshops and meetups, business and professional leadership training, business expos, and access to data and research to get important information on the economy. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hello, my name is Richard Gianni. I am the Houston Market President for Lift Fund here in Houston, Texas. Lift Fund is proud to serve as the presenting sponsor for the Greater Houston Partnership Small Biz Matters On Demand series. What does Lift Fund do? We engage entrepreneurs, small businesses throughout the Greater Houston and East Texas area with support along two fronts. First, through small business loans. When a bank can't say yes today or they are unable to secure conventional financing otherwise, as a nonprofit community development financial institution, we are here to fill that gap. In addition to small loans, we fill that gap also through education, both through our internal resources as well as those through the many partners with whom we work, such as the Greater Houston Partnership. We are proud to be involved in this endeavor and look forward to providing more services through the Greater Houston Partnership.
Today's webisode will feature Greater Houston Partnership member Arcadis and will focus on 6 ways to foster the next generation workforce.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to have a chance to sit here with you today and talk a little bit about the 6 ways to foster the next generation workforce. My name is Chuck Wolf, and I'm a Senior Vice President with Arcadis US. I'm also a Professor of Practice at Texas A&M, so I'm trying to bring some perspectives we have from a large company with 5,000 employees in the United States, most of which are below 30 years of age and fit in the next generation workforce, as well as my experience as an academic working with the next generation before they move off into the future. So I want to start today's discussion off with a little quote from John Lennon. It says, "When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life," happiness being the key in this. "When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wrote happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment. I told them they didn't understand life." I found that this is regardless of how you feel about John Lennon, this is probably a very apt description of the way the next generation workforce, the Gen Zs and the millennials look at the world. It's not that they have to be happy about everything, but they have a unique perspective on the world, and a perspective that, quite frankly, even back in the 60s, we probably would have considered very creative. They tend to be very outspoken. They've got their own unique way of looking at things and what they want to accomplish with their careers and their time. And how we interact with that as business leaders becomes really important for the long term, and how we develop them, how we engage them, and how we help them help us by fostering that next generation. So that's what we want to talk about a little bit more today. So first thing you need to know about the next generation is it's a very diverse population, much unlike the orange you see here. You look at 2000, the Texas workforce was about 53% Anglo and about 32 or so percent Hispanic. And actually by 2030, that will switch, and it'll be mostly Hispanic by projections. But the difference here is, or the commonality here really is, it's still a really diverse workplace. And that's something that's very important to keep in mind when you think about the next generation workforce is, unlike prior generations, diversity is not an option or a concept that is foreign to these folks. This is something they live with. It's a given. Whether it's ethnic diversity or gender diversity, they come into the workforce with an expectation of that, and something that we have to work with as leaders in the workforce to be able to engage them and get the best out of them. There's 5 other things that are really important to consider with respect to this generation whenever you think about how they interact with the world and the way they look at the world. The first one of those is, this is generally a very well-educated generation. So they come out with a lot of skills and capabilities. A bachelor's or an associate's degree, while not universal, is something that a lot of these folks are going to have. and that comes with a certain level of expectation for how they're able to interact with their work world. The next one is, as you probably know, they're extremely digital. This is the day and age that was born into digital processes and digital platforms. So for them, digital is just a given, the same way as maybe gaming was for the millennials, or for us Gen Xers having music on the go with a big boombox or something along those lines. The other thing is they're highly connected. It's a generation that has grown up with Twitter and Facebook. They use LinkedIn to look for jobs coming out of college. They don't need career centers as much as they used to. So how they're connected and how they use connections really impacts a large way with how they look at the world, and something that we have to think about as business leaders. And two other things that are very unique to the generation is they're very time conscious, and they're also very socially conscious. And how we play to those needs and we work with those needs has a huge impact on how we can successfully engage them and get the most out of them and help them provide the most back to our organizations. So there's definitely more than 6 strategies that are available to engage and grow the next generation workforce. But we've got 6 here that we found at Arcadis that are very, very helpful in how we work with our younger professionals, as well as some of the things that I've seen in my time as a professor. So the first one of these is focusing on the intrinsic and really tapping into the things that are internal to them, those what gets them up in the morning type items, as opposed to just simply what you can do monetarily. Next one is acknowledging that these are digital natives. They've grown up with digital, they know it, and they use it as a collaboration platform. The third one is to accentuate the individual. This is a group that also has the ability to get instant access and instant credibility and feedback from a large number of people through social media, so the impact of the individual is really important. The fourth one is to be timely and responsive. As managers, we have to be cognizant of those time-conscious, social-conscious aspects, and being timely is a key element of the social conscious one, as is having a cause or a reason for being and connecting to something that would be considered good. So this connects to the social conscious side of this generation. And then finally, this is a generation that is very open to providing feedback. They will engage in meetings, they will engage with upper management. So you have to be open to their input and even their criticism, and especially even if it's misplaced. So we're going to talk through each of these 6 real quickly. As far as focusing on the intrinsic, it's really important to know another few things about the generation that play into this intrinsic motivation issue. First, this is the first generation in U.S. history that has an expectation that it will not be better than their parents' generation. It's not that they're pessimistic, they're just very, very practical and very realistic, and they see what's going on in the world. Next thing is that they have a very keen understanding on the value of time and what can be done with it. While obviously not a universal truth, this is a generation that's grown up with a good deal of wealth and a good deal of flexibility and prosperity. So they look at time a little bit differently than we may look at time from prior generations. And they want to focus on how they can use that time to make the most good happen. Next element is that while money is always important and it can't be completely discounted, this generation tends to look at money for what it can do and what they can do with it, as opposed to what it means by how much money they have. So how we work with that is really important. And these 3 things sort of play to a more of an intrinsic drive, a more drive of what are the internal things that get you up in the morning that make you really want to do well and be successful at work. So excitement and drive in this case is going to be more likely to come from internal personal desires instead of future wages or something that they don't like doing or something they're not considering doing. So how you work with this is real simple. You have to engage with the staff members and talk to them about what gets them up in the morning and how that changes, especially as they're earlier in their career and then moving to later on in their career, because it will change as they move forward and as life changes. But staying connected to that is a key way to be successful. Next thing is to acknowledge that these are digital natives and let them collaborate. So I ask you a question. When you see the image on the screen, what do you see? Do you see a rain cloud? Maybe you see a thought cloud. If you're the next generation worker, you probably see the cloud. And what this really means is that they're used to and they were born into an arrangement where collaboration just simply happens through digital means. It still blows me away, it probably shouldn't, but it blows me away that I can have my students working in teams where they're at their desks and they have something shown on the screen and the 4 of them are working in the exact same document at the same time. It doesn't bother them at all, it would scare me to death. But that's a norm for them. They tend to schedule things on Facebook. They will do projects on OneDrive, and they'll use Google Drive for storing files. So what that means for us as business leaders is it provides a great opportunity. If we can engage the young professionals in the next generation in how they use their digital means to collaborate, we can connect with our customers better, we can connect with our suppliers better, and we can solve problems with a much greater data set than we ever had access to before. Next one is to accentuate the individual. I'm sure you remember these folks from earlier in the presentation. The question is do you remember her? Because focusing on the one individual and not focusing on a generational dynamic is incredibly important with this group. So how do you interact with them? How do you connect with them? How do you stay focused to them? It's always important to keep in mind that this is a generation that has had the opportunity to be able to connect with many people, but still be able to get personal feedback from them, whether it was likes or comments or other things on a Facebook post, or just simply being able to reach out to a lot of people and see what the impact of that outreach is. So being focused on the individual, keeping your focus on them and where they want to go with their careers is an incredibly powerful tool in your tool belt to help foster them and help them move forward. So another element of this is, as managers, we really have to be timely and we have to be responsive. So what does timely mean to this generation? Timely really means that you're there, and when you ask for something, it's when you need it, and whenever you offer something, you're going to give it at that point in time. As I mentioned earlier, this generation has an incredibly high sensitivity towards the value of their time and the impact of that time. One of the number one negative feedbacks that we hear from young professionals is you ask for something on a Friday and you didn't review it until a Tuesday. Why did I bust my hump to be able to give it to you on Friday if you didn't need it until 2 days later? That's what we mean by being timely. It's a respect for time. It's also plays into how you're being responsive. The 9-to-5 workplace is generally dead in mind and thought to the next generation of worker. So they're going to work at all kinds of times of the day. They will work from 9 to 5, but they may be solving problems early in the morning, maybe solving problems late at night, maybe doing it at a Starbucks. And how that process plays out is really important, because when they have a question, they need an answer, they're going to come to you. So being on receive as opposed to being on send most of the time is a great way to connect with the next generation and make sure you can help them to be successful. The last piece of this is, while you're being timely and responsive with your feedback, make sure your feedback is really directly connected to the professional development and growth of that individual. Answers that are along the lines of, well, this is the way we do it, or this is what you just sort of have to do, that doesn't connect well with this generation. But talking specifically to their needs and why it's important for them to do it this way, and why it'll help their career be better, or help the project be better, or help whatever you're working on be better, that really sinks in, because it comes from a coaching and a teaching perspective that they've really grown up with their entire lives. The fifth one is to have a cause or a reason for being and connect it to good. We are not talking about turning your companies into a nonprofit here. That's not the focus. The real focus here is to make sure that while you're making your profit and you're growing your company, it has some benefit that everybody can see as something beyond just making money. And why this is important is, you have to remember, for most of these folks, they lived through the Great Recession. They saw corporate social responsibility issues that were not held up, and they want to see that their work goes beyond just the confines of the day-to-day job. So volunteer opportunities, sustainability, environmental opportunities, being a good corporate citizen, all of those things play into this and are really important to the generation. The last one of these suggestions or strategies is to be open to input and criticism, even when misplaced. One of the things that the Gen X parents and most of the next generation gave to them is a very open mind with respect to providing feedback and asking for what they want. You could say that these folks have been in adulting training from early on in their lives. And while they may not be independent of their parents per se, they are very independent in the way they give feedback and the way they expect to interact with individuals. So you have to be open to that. Try not to push back too negatively against it. Stay engaged with it. And the more open you can be, even if it's misplaced, and use it as a coaching opportunity or a teaching opportunity, you're going to find great results from the staff in how they react to that. So some things that we have not included in these strategies. There's some things we will make sure that you don't think you have to focus on to deploy these 6 strategies. The first one of these is, you don't have to focus on controlling the career aspirations of the next generation. Every generation, as we know, comes out with grandiose ideas and big thoughts and concepts they want to accomplish. And we all know that those don't always pan out. The interesting thing about this generation is they are very grounded. So their career aspirations, while they may sound big, they're probably not going to be as big as Gen X was or other generations before them. And they're going to be very open to the coaching to help get them there. The next thing is, top-down management and command and control structure management really doesn't connect with this generation. More of a focus on the outputs and the products that are generated That's where you're going to make the best connection with these folks. Next one is the thought that everything must be done in person. While doing things in person is great, and certainly I would always advise you do annual reviews and key development meetings in person as much as you can, this is a generation that is highly capable at doing things over digital mediums, video conferencing, and those kinds of functions. Probably shouldn't be doing texting, but other things you can be very engaged with. So don't wait for a meeting to be in person to have a meeting. Have that meeting in a timely and responsive way when you need it, and if it's going to be over Skype or it's going to be some sort of form, that's perfectly okay. The other one along these same lines is using a quote-unquote annual goal setting and reviews process. It just doesn't work because the focus is more continual. The feedback stream that this generation is used to getting is very rich and very continual. So you need to have a more applied process that is more regular. The way we do this at Arcadis is we have quarterly meetings that we talk about goals, we talk about performance, we talk about follow-through. And that's sort of the minimum expected time. If people meet with their staff on a monthly basis and that's what is needed, that's perfectly fine. So the annual process is just a little too long. So don't worry about having to meet in person, and make sure you make those meetings as often as possible. The next one is, and this is in green because it's a little bit of a different slant on these, it's perfectly fine to set expectations around work culture, to set a hard work culture, to set a dedicated work culture, a conscientious work culture. Even though you may not be able to set a hard and fast timeline for that culture, you can still have an expectation in your organization that we have things we have to accomplish, things that we have to do, and we have to work hard to do that. I don't think this generation has a problem with that. At least the students that I see day in and day out don't seem to have a problem with hard work. They just want to make sure that it's connected and they got some flexibility to control it for themselves. And the last thing about this is, while a lot of the elements of these 6 strategies maybe seem soft, this is not all about the soft stuff. There's definitely things that we all have to do to run our companies, to make our companies successful, and certainly growing your company and making a profit is very important. No one's going to discount that in the next generation. So don't worry about it being all the soft stuff, but also don't forget the soft stuff, because that's where you're going to get your engagement that will help them grow and develop. So I certainly hope that this information will be helpful for you in how you foster the next generation of worker, and best of luck to you. Thank you.
Again, we would like to thank Lift Fund as the inaugural Small Biz Matters Digital On-Demand series sponsor and Arcadis for sharing. Reminder to check out the remaining bite-sized digital on-demand episodes in the 2018 lineup. Please access the Greater Houston Partnership's Small Business Resource page and opt into our mailing list to receive additional release dates as well as imperative information pertinent to local small businesses.